After watching Sir Ken Robinson's TED Talk video on education, I've concluded that he feels creativity is equal to literacy and it doesn't get enough emphasis within the educational system that he feels that it deserves. He communicates this in the style of humor and anecdotes mixed with facts regarding the subject, and he really emphasizes points by his own educational background, and just the way he displays it is very comfortable. Like, I feel like everybody really understood his point of view and was able to glean from their own pasts how the education system as it is really does put arts on the bottom and everything else is just stacked above it, which makes being a creative person difficult to excel. I had a friend in school who was really bad at math, but now she's a photographer and that's how she makes her living, and it's just perfectly fine. I don't even know if she graduated high school, but she's a successful businesswoman. It's just the standard educational system as it is didn't help her the way it may help other people, but doesn't help everybody in a universal way, and I think that's what he was trying to express. I think that he connected his audience very well, and it was very relatable, some of the stories that he was talking about. And I think his speech was very effective in getting his point across. The next video I watched was Chimamanda Adichie. The Danger of a Single Story is the one I watched. And she makes her points by telling a story and then telling you why it's important to her point, and then telling you more of the story and then adding it in, kind of weaving her story into like a blanket or a tapestry, and then at the end when she's making her conclusion, she kind of just like shows it to everybody, which I think is really an interesting way of telling a story, because like you keep getting tidbits of what she's getting at and like where she's going, but you don't really see the whole picture until the end of her talk, which I liked. I think she was very interesting. TED Talks, I think, are really a useful tool because it's in a way you can see these people's perspectives without actually meeting these people. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't want to meet these people. I'm just saying that I don't have the opportunity to meet these people at this time, and TED Talks is a way for me to be able to understand these people's point of view from the comfort of my own home. And I think that's an extraordinary useful tool towards just better understanding how other people live and their points of view. I think it's an opportunity to hear what people are passionate about that I may not know anything about or have any desire to learn about, but I can learn from these people's stories and perspectives what they're passionate about. So it's kind of a good, it's a really good way for other people to learn just the mass amount of knowledge that you can learn. It's hard to describe, but basically, I think that TED Talks is really useful because otherwise I may not know what it's like to live in Nigeria. Because I am Caucasian, and so a lot of the stories that she was talking about in that story, I grew up learning and reading about, but I didn't even acknowledge that eating apples was weird because I eat apples. So I think that, these types of TED Talks is a good way to show that not everybody has the same perspective. The next video I watched was by Robin Morgan, and it was 4 powerful poems about Parkinson's and growing older. The first poem was really describing her aging process and how difficult it had become to be old, and with arthritis and Parkinson's, and like she talked about how it was difficult to open a button or do buttons, and like how she no longer could open a doorknob with one hand, she had to use 2, and it was just like a rediscovering of herself and how she could use her body because her body is different now, and so she had to really relearn who she was in her new Parkinson's and older body, which was an interesting perspective. And then the second poem discussed how she wanted to donate her body to science after she was gone because she really felt like the Parkinson's research going on now is insufficient, and that if what she could donate would help. She talks about how, she wants them to look at her slab of her brain and how it would help. She was like, tell the story that I can't grasp the words to tell you myself. And it was an interesting way of discussing a disease. And then the third one describes the difficulty of her still being able to stand and do all these performances and speeches, because it's difficult for her now to move and be mobile and get from point A to point B, even though it's really what she loves. And then the fourth poem describes her being on her porch in twilight time before the newspaper, and it allows her to reflect on her life and how she's really felt like she had a full life and she was happy about it despite everything that's been going on as she's grown older. The next video I watched was by Sheikha Al-Mayasi, It was Globalizing the Local, Localizing the Global. She was from Qatar, and she was describing how the modern culturization of ancient cultures, basically. How she's an Arab woman, and she is describing how Qatar is really coming into this global modernization of everything, how technology has been connecting the worlds together, and so she's discussing that while modernization is a good thing, it doesn't mean you have to let go of your past. And so what she's been developing is more modern art museums and film industry within Qatar, so it can be an educational way of exploring Arab culture in a modern way. And I think that that's a really good thing for Arab culture all around, because I think that it's often misrepresented, and I think that this is a really good opportunity for the Middle East to show their culture for what it is and how beautiful it really is. And I think that I look forward to all of that progressing. The last video I watched was by Sheila Nirenberg, and it was called A Prosthetic Eye to Treat Blindness. And she was not a doctor, but she's a scientist of some sort, and she was talking about how the eye has these receptors that basically has a code that allows you to view the image, your eye, it's upside down, kind of like a camera lens, and you view them that way. And I guess that there is just receptors and you get codes, and so when you're blind, those codes die. Well, not the codes die, but the receptors themselves die, and there's a microchip that you can use and replace that allows you to gain the majority of your vision back. And it's a new technology, and she really described it in a pretty good way. She used a lot of visual aids because it was pretty complex what she was talking, and clearly I didn't get most of it, but it was a really interesting subject that she clearly knew a lot about. She talked about how if any of the audience members had more questions, she would follow up with a lot of data. She just didn't have enough time to show it all to us, and so it was really interesting, and it was clearly still in the beginning stages, and it seems like it could be really good for those of us who have gone blind. Thank you.